Welcome to Chapels from Rosedale Bible College. Thanks for joining our community for weekly chapels recorded on our campus in Rosedale, Ohio. We hope you are challenged and inspired by what you hear. Enjoy.
This is such a privilege. I have loved so many things about Rosedale. I did not get to attend here. I spent 6 weeks at Maranatha Bible School in Minnesota. At that season in my life, Rosedale was not in the blessing of my conservative Mennonite world. I would have liked to come here, but was not able to do that. But I want you to do something today for a minute. Put your hand over on your chest where you can find your heartbeat. It's hard to do, isn't it? I promise that if you can't find your heartbeat, that doesn't mean you're dead. You're still alive. I just close your eyes for a minute, and I want you to just think about, who is that person? Who are you? Every day, every year of our life, we're being shaped, and we are a real person. We're also becoming someone. You can open your eyes, and you can keep your hand there if you want to. It's kind of cool to find your heartbeat. Most of the time, if somebody asks you who you are, you lean into one of three things. You either start talking about what you do that you think is important, or you talk about either what you have in your possessions or your people, your family, things that you're connected to. Or you talk about what you think other people say or think about you, and you kind of think that's who you are. A lot of us also have experienced enough suffering and trauma that deep down we think that that's kind of who we are. The hard things that we've experienced define us. I hope to bring you good news today that your suffering and your trauma does not define you. So what does define you? We'll get to that at the end. I want to tell you my story this morning, and I hope you're not bored silly with it. It's a pretty ordinary story, really, but there's also a lot of really important details that shape a person's life and kind of develop the person that we are. Our families of origin, I don't know, how many of you have ever done a genogram and sorted through like the previous 3 generations and all the different things that shaped you? Do it sometime. It's really cool. Something that Lori and we do a good bit of premarital counseling, and we encourage couples to do genograms and try to trace family patterns. It helps us kind of understand who we are, but also helps us understand how we can sometimes overcome things that we need to. So my story, my parents were Paul and Ella Coblentz. My dad was born in 1920, my mom in 1928. So they were 8 years apart. They both grew up Old Order Amish in Holmes County. Let's just say Holmes County. Anybody here from Holmes County? Yeah, that's where my roots are. It's a handful of you here. The Coblentz family, first of all, both of my parents were firstborns, which is interesting. My father, the oldest of 8, my mom, the oldest of 4. The Coblentz family was known to be very hardworking, very industrious. Most of them were farmers, energetic, and pretty quiet. The Beachy family had a different vibe. They were more social, more involved in people and a lot of things. A big part of my story and its influence involves my grandpa, Beachy. So my grandpa was Jacob Beachy, and as a young Amish boy, he was a baseball player and really talented. He was a left-handed pitcher, and the story is told that he had a contract offer from the Cleveland Indians because he was that good. And interestingly, we used to go to my cousin's house, which was on the same property as my grandpa, and we would play baseball. And one day he came out and started throwing some pitches, and he was in his 70s, and he could still throw a pretty sharp breaking ball, left-handed, a curveball. But he was a really talented pitcher. But he had a contract offer from the Cleveland Indians, and near the same time, he found out that his girlfriend was pregnant. And unfortunately, that is part of the story, even in the Old Order Amish church. And so the obvious plan for them was we will marry, but he wanted to keep playing baseball, but she said, you choose either baseball or me, but I'm staying in the Amish church. So that was the beginning of my mom's story. She was that child. And I think she grew up with this layer of always this kind of rejection, like you were the reason that my dreams weren't fulfilled. And he settled into Old Order Amish life, and that story took a really significant turn when my mom was 18 or 19. Her only brother, Levi, when he turned 16, he was invited to do the typical Rumspringa. You guys know that word? Which means you sow your wild oats. You go and you drink and party and hang out with your friends. But on that particular night, when he was invited to go do that for the first time, my mom, his older sister, had just a really strong burden for him to not go, and begged her father, please don't let him go. And he said, no, this is what we do. He's going. And that night, he and 4 other young men ditched their car in a snowstorm, left the engine running, and 4 of the 5 of them died that night, including my Uncle Levi. That was now you have a relationship between a father and daughter that's already strained in a culture where you can't talk about anything. And that was my mom's story. She carried that into her marriage, and it deeply affected kind of our whole family. And she struggled with a lot of mental health, a lot of difficult things. Her relationship with my dad was a strained one at best. So that's part of the trauma that's in the root of my story, part of the shadow. My mom needed grace and healing, didn't know where to find it. And my dad escaped to his work. I'm the youngest of 8. My parents weren't emotionally very healthy, but they kept having babies, interestingly. And I was the last one in that line. I grew up trying to be noticed, hoping that I was perfect enough, good enough to make some kind of an impact. I wanted my dad's blessing so much. A number of years ago, Michael Card wrote a song called Underneath the Door, and he talked about having a father who was in the medical profession who would come home and go straight to his room and close the door, and he would draw pictures and slide them under the door. He was just trying to get his dad's attention and blessing. And I didn't do that, but that's really how I lived much of my childhood. My mom was sometimes ill for a month at a time, like bedridden ill. So her emotional disconnect and my father disappearing to work left us sort of to raise ourselves a good part of the time. And I tried to do it and do that well. I became angry, selfish, tasted plenty of sin at a young age. At 11, I received the beautiful gift of redemption and forgiveness for my sins, and I began to be reshaped. But it is a process. And for me, the process of letting go of the layers of needing to take care of myself and become who I think I should be, and also the layers of shame. I didn't realize until probably the last 10 years that I grew up with a layer of family shame. That because we were that family, the one where you have some mental health and we had this shadow, and I just thought that was normal. That's how life is. But it turns out it's not like that. Although we all have some shadows, I carried a lot of shame. I've learned that sin and the results of sin, the repercussions, the ripple effect brings a curse on all of our lives. It did to me. But I believe that the Father's blessing reverses the curse. And my story is really one of God using so many different people to insert blessing at different seasons in my life that my parents just weren't healthy enough to give. And they weren't bad people, but they couldn't give the blessing that I needed so much. But God sent people that filled that. A couple of key developers and sources of blessing. The first one was Hartville Christian School. So youngest of 8, none of my older siblings went to high school. When I was in 8th grade, I begged my mom. I wanted to go to high school. I wanted to keep going to school. I was not at all interested in just developing a construction job, or I had no desire to at some point start a business. A few of my older brothers had done that. And she found out about this school, Hartville Christian School, which was an hour away. But there were some students from the Sugar Creek and Berlin area that were driving up there every day going to that school. My dad wanted no part of it. He didn't think it was necessary. So there was a little tension between them. And I didn't think it was going to happen. But 2 days after school had already started, she announced to me that I was starting school the next day. So I walked into this environment, didn't know a single person at 14 years old, a freshman in high school, and that was a really life-changing thing for me. That was the first place that I experienced some level of discipleship. I had some teachers who really cared for me, spoke into my life. My best friend in high school was a guy named Pat Overholt, and I would sometimes stay at his house. His father, Al, was somebody who blessed me. He called me his son. He loved me like a son and spoke blessing over me many times. He did that until about 5 years ago when he passed away, consistently kept speaking life into me. I also developed a serious crush in high school, believe it or not. Anybody familiar with that? I met a girl named Lori, who is now my wife of 37 years. She has been an incredible blessing to me. How many of you have met Lori? Some of you are in Salt and Light. So good to have you guys the other night. By the way, when a thought like that hits me, I have to talk about it. I'm ADHD. I've learned to manage it, but yeah, it was so good to have the group at our church on Sunday night. Lori has been really good for me because she reminds me often that I don't have to be perfect, and that what God created me to be is enough. It's good enough. I graduated from high school in 1984. Class motto was study less, party more. We're the class of 84. Not proud of that. We had some fun with that. At that time, in 1984, I had no idea what my life was going to look like. I had 2 dreams. I wanted to be a rock star, It was the 80s, by the way, and I was crooning 80s rock songs all the time and really thought I could do it. Like, this is my life. The backup plan was to be a major league catcher. I loved baseball. By God's grace, he sort of intervened and redirected both of those. I did not turn out to be either of those things, but those were my maybe childish dreams. The year after high school, I had an opportunity to join Gospel Echoes, which is a prison ministry. How many know about Gospel Echoes? Oh, a lot of you do. That was a really important time in my life. I spent 7 months with the Harvest team. Glendon Bender was my group leader, another person who blessed me, who believed in me, spoke into me. I was so not ready for anything I experienced with Gospel Echoes. I remember a month or two into that, we were in Dade County Correctional Institute near Miami, Florida, and we spent a weekend. We did some music, but we also did some teaching. And Glendon announced to me, "Oh, by the way, you're going to lead a group of guys in a discussion today." And I said, "I have no idea what I'm doing, but I loved Jesus. I loved the Word. So okay, let's do it." I walked into this circle of guys. The first guy in the circle that I met walked up to me, shook my hand, and he said, "My name is Mercury Morris." Does that ring a bell for anybody? Mercury Morris was a running back for the Miami Dolphins, gained over 1,000 yards a couple of years. He was from Pittsburgh. But back then, the NFL players weren't paid a lot. After he got out of the NFL, he started selling drugs and had like a 7 or 8 year prison sentence. And he said, "I'm Mercury Morris, and I'm a deacon in this church." Okay. And he was great, because that weekend, as I kind of stumbled into trying to lead a group of guys in a Bible study, he was there the whole time, just sort of supporting, inserting things. Really good man. After Gospel Echoes, I had the opportunity to start teaching at Hartville Christian School, the school that invested so much in me. I ended up teaching a number of different things, mostly junior high. Early on, I taught junior high math and Bible. I taught PE. Later, I also taught high school Bible and was the athletic director, coached varsity volleyball for 10 years, coached flag football for a couple of years. So Hartville Christian School was kind of a big part of my life, different things that I did. During that time, I also, Hartville Christian offered to pay for a percentage of my credits if I did some continuing education. So I went to the University of Akron. Go Zips. Zips are perennial entries in the men's basketball tournament, because they almost always win the MAC tournament. Well, they have recently. But that was really a good season for me. I learned a lot. I felt completely like a duck out of water walking onto that campus the first time. I majored in English and voice. I never got a degree. Did about 1.5 years, but I remember I really wanted to study voice. My wife's brother, Marlon, who is still an opera singer in Austria, had been at that school, and I really, really wanted to study voice under his same teacher. Her name was Tana Alexander. Wonderful, wonderful woman. But I had to audition for that. So for my audition, I sang a hymn. And I had a jury that kind of looked at each other and said, "Okay, you're in." And I got to study voice for a couple of years under Ms. Alexander. She was another person who, not necessarily in a spiritual context, but just in a human context, really blessed me. She believed in me. She really wanted me to make a career of singing opera. Again, it wasn't the right path, and I'm thankful for that, but that was another track that I was on for a bit. I spent one summer, the summer of '88, in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Became a die-hard Tar Heels fan. I'm sorry, Buckeyes, but Zips and Tar Heels, those are my schools. That was also a really good developing time. It was the first time that I lived alone, and just learned to love the South. I got married to Lori in 1989. I remember talking with her while we were dating and just saying, I know there's some kind of a call for ministry on my life. I have no idea what that looks like. I will tell you straight up, I'm never going to be wealthy. I'm not going to pursue big business. If you want that life, it's going to have to be with somebody else. It's not going to be me. And she was very accepting of that. She probably doubted it a little bit, but, and she's been so great because ministry is challenging. Just a week ago today, Lori and I stood in front of an audience at the beginning of a funeral and led worship. And one of our former youth girls had a 4-year-old daughter, died on her 4th birthday. And we were stepping in to just represent Jesus in that space. And ministry is like that sometimes, and it's not always an easy thing, but such an opportunity to be present with people when they're going through their hardest things. That same year, I began working as an optician. My brother-in-law is Mark Kaufman, and they have a practice in Sugar Creek. And he said, I would like to open a lab and cut our lenses and and make our eyeglasses on site. Are you interested? And I said, why not? And I committed to doing it for a year, and I've done it now for 37. I estimate that I have made 185,000 pairs of glasses. It's a rough estimate. Could be more than that, but I've done a lot of that over the years. Been bivocational for a number of years. The last 10 years I've been paid half-time as a pastor at Bethany, but have continued to work in that industry. In 1990, we started attending Bethany, and we were immediately, the first Sunday that we showed up, we were invited to join the youth ministry. I don't know what they were thinking. Again, it's been the story of my life. I keep being inserted into things that I'm not prepared for. But we did join youth ministry a year or two later. In 94, I was commissioned as a deacon, and then in 1996, on my 30th birthday, I was licensed as a pastor, and then ordained about a year and a half later. Interesting about that night when I was licensed, it was the only time that I ever heard my dad say, I love you. And I really treasured that because those are just not words I heard growing up, ever. But he did say that night. About 4.5 years into ministry, our youth pastor at Bethany retired, and Lori and I felt that we were sort of called to that from the beginning, and so we shifted into that role, and we were there for a long time. It was almost 20 years. I don't know if they just didn't have the heart to tell us to let us go and get rid of us, or if we were just too stubborn. I do know one thing. Youth ministry was never a step on a ladder for us. We weren't trying to get somewhere. This was what we wanted to do. We wanted to be with kids. One of the great blessings in my life has been to walk with kids through the darkest places, to bring hope, to point them to Jesus, to pray with them and cry with them, and just love kids and believe in them and be the blessing that I also needed as a young person, source of blessing. A couple of other significant things. I'm going to wrap up soon. A few times when Jesus revealed himself to me. Once was in an upper room in Juarez, Mexico. I was leading the youth choir, and it was a tiny the room was small enough that I was directing the choir from the back of the room, and the choir was in the front, and the 30 or 40 people were in between us because that was the only place I could stand. I had to be back in the aisleway in the back. But I have rarely been aware of the Holy Spirit's pouring out and presence like that particular morning. I keep calling it an upper room. There were also there have been other times like that, a few in Costa Rica. Lori and I led our youth group to Costa Rica 4 different times with Vita Missions. Where's John Luke? Just talked with John Luke the other night. Heard he's going to join, do Vita 220 in the fall. I'm so excited for you. I have seen God working there. Dylan Hoover, who started that mission, was a dear friend of mine. So sad to lose him in 2020. In 2021, I then shifted back to an associate pastor role at Bethany. My kids call me the Swiss Army knife pastor. I preach, I lead worship, I teach, I lead our life groups. I do our assimilation and hospitality stuff, premarital counseling and mentoring, just a lot of different things. Whatever needs to be done. My doings, just a few things. These don't define me. I've been a deacon, a youth pastor, worship leader, a children's ministry leader, choir director. A couple of unique life experiences. I visited 11 different countries. I was involved in medical missions with Bob Miller, who's an optometrist that I work for. That's been really neat. Got to swim in the Amazon on one of those trips. Kind of foolish, actually, because the Amazon looks like, at the place we were at, it's wide, it looks like a lake, but you get in there, there's an undercurrent, and it's kind of dangerous to swim in that. And I'm not a very good swimmer, but I did survive. Got to fit eyeglasses on a tribal chief because we did some refractions, some eye exams for a little tribe going up the Amazon, one of the tributaries. I was going to say I got to do that for a tribal chief in a loincloth. He was wearing the loincloth, not me. But that was very interesting. My family, these are the people that I'm so blessed with. We have 3 sons. Quentin is 30-something now. He's married. Quentin and Nicole have adopted 2 little ones, and they're adopting a 3rd. Quentin, life track from high school, wanted to be a music producer, went to recording workshop in Chillicothe, and chose that path and has been very successful in it. He's won 6 Dove Awards and a Grammy as a producer. Such a blessing, and he's also just had some amazing relationships with people. Our middle son is Camden. Camden is a big part of our story. Camden, when he was 4, was run over in our church parking lot by a car accidentally. Survived that, had no major issues, but 3 years later developed a brain tumor. And he has reminded me of God's grace so much. Camden's life track has been different from his brother's, but I can say by God's grace that he spent a lot of years in survival mode because he thought the world is just against me. He's not there anymore, and he's almost 30, lives with us. He's learning to dream and believe in what his life can be. He's healed a lot, but he's had some difficult experiences, and we've all learned a lot from that. Morgan, some of you guys have met. He was here in the fall, I think it was, and did a concert. Morgan spent 3 years here at RBC, and very awesome years. This place was so good for him. Thank you for everybody who spoke into Morgan's life. Morgan just this past week agreed to take a position as a music teacher at a Christian school in our area. So kind of a different life track developing for him. But he's also recording music, hoping to do that as a career. We have 2 little beautiful babies, Felix and Raina. Felix just turned 4. Raina's a 1.5 years. They are a delight to us. My story ends with redemption. Grandpa Beachy, a few days before he passed away, when he knew he was dying, he called for my mom. And she was able to share the gospel with him. And at that season, he received the gift. and it was, he had known about Jesus, but he grew up with so much other stuff. And he just wanted to know for sure. And she was able to share that with him. So grateful for that. For me, letting go of my parents, forgiving them for who they weren't, more than for who they were. I got to, with both of my parents in their dying days, sit next to them with my guitar and just sing. And my dad loved music. Actually, my mom did too. But with my mom, it was really, it's a memory that I will treasure because she had been unresponsive for almost 24 hours and was laying there, and I started singing 10,000 Reasons. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Softly played my guitar, and her lips started moving to the words. And that was a beautiful moment. I was able, because then I knew she could hear me, and I was able to tell her all the things that I wanted to tell her and just let her go. A few regrets. I don't have a lot. A few regrets. I wish I had let go sooner in my parents' case. I learned that I am the most like Jesus when I forgive. I think that's true for all of us. I wish I hadn't lived in the shadows of shame for so long. I'm glad that for the most part I don't anymore, but I wish that had happened sooner. I wish I had learned sooner that I'm not defined by trauma, by suffering, or by sins. Close your eyes again. Put your hand back over your heart. And I speak this over you. You are a beautiful, created by God, amazing person, redeemed by the blood of Jesus, called his own. And like John said of himself, you are a disciple that Jesus loved. Father, I pray that these students and this faculty, everybody here today would be able to just receive that blessing from you and to know that who we are is really about a beautiful design that you had, gifts that you poured into us, and that we are blessed. We are not under a curse, that Jesus took the curse on himself. And I pray that we would be able to receive that blessing. And I pray that as you keep building the layers in the lives of these students, that you would reveal yourself at every turn and that you would shape them for your glory and for deep impact for the kingdom of Jesus. I ask it in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Thanks for listening. If you found this episode helpful, please share so others can benefit from it as well. And be sure to check out our other podcasts at rosedale.edu/podcasts.